Hello and welcome to episode 23 of Area Control Bros, where this time we will not be talking about area control games.
No, sir.
No
Nope.
area control to be found here this time. And the two games today are Hegemony, Lead Your Class to Victory, and Zoo Vadis.
Lead your animal to victory.
True. Dang, you were quick on the uptake on that one.
Oh yeah.
Did you prep that?
No, I don't prep anything. I'm
Oh,
a I'm a
okay.
fly, flying by the seat of my pants.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what that means though. I'm just prepared to say it, you know.
Well, anyway, both of these games are, as I said, not area control, and they're also quite different from each other. And in some ways, they're both, well, I'd say Hegemony is the less unique of the two, but I'd say they both kind of stand out in their space a little bit. And hopefully, our conversation about them today is interesting for you as it is for us.
Hopefully it's enlightening, I feel like I'm so, ahead of the curve in terms of, thoughts and ideas that my speaking about things should be enlightening in and of itself for people just hearing about it. And I don't want to toot my buddy's horn, but I think that both of these guys here, Ben and Will, have a similar quality of being able to um enlighten others purely by the weight of their thoughts.
Yeah, I certainly have no idea what you will say next, Blake.
Yeah,
The weight of our thoughts and the sound of our voices.
right.
Mhm.
And so
So,
we got
uh,
some hegemony here, right?
We
Yeah,
do have
hegemony.
we do have some hegemony. So right off the bat, I'm sure everybody's heard about this game. If you have not, that's also fine. But this was kind of the talk of the town. 2023 release, Kickstarter, I believe, funded. Um, sorry, crowdfunded game. It's a heavy Euro. I think a lot of people consider it to be the people who are into heavy Euros consider this to be one of the better heavy Euros. I think it won a lot of awards that year for being the heavy Euro of the year from various, uh, you know, the people who have enough prestige to give out awards. I guess we could give out an award, but nobody would care. So like there has to be a threshold you cross for people to care enough about what you say that they put your sticker on the box. And on the
Right.
hegemony box, there's a whole pile of little badges and stickers saying of people's accolades.
Oh, really? I'm gonna
Yeah.
look at these.
But regardless,
Yeah.
the designers are Greek. This is a Euro game made by Euro people, and Mediterranean Euro people, which is there. Italy has always been a big presence in the board game scene. Maybe not always, but uh, is a big presence and has been for some amount of time. Greece, not so much. I'm not. Then again, I'm not a super expert in the topic, but just at least in my experience, there are not as many Greek designers. So it's really cool to see a game succeed like this that's from a country that isn't as well known or at least as involved in sort of the international board game sphere. So good for these guys putting this one out, and succeeding. And also they've got another game that they crowdfunded next, which I think is World Order.
Oh,
Um,
I had heard about that one, World Order. It's
yeah,
similar thematically to Hegemony,
it is
very
also
topical.
it's geopolitics instead of kind of national politics or
Yeah.
state politics, if you prefer.
Um, yeah, publisher is Hegemonic Project Games, so they must have really.
There you go. Yeah, this is their big thing. But anyway, this game is 4.21 weight on the geek. So this is, most people consider this to be pretty heavy. 8.4. It's already in the top 100, number 49 overall.
You do
Uh,
have an entire page, like double-sided, of like this is what your faction can do. So like
Yeah,
everybody gets like an
I
entire
think
like little
warranted
pamphlet.
4.2, given
Yeah.
that, right, Ben? Like it's got a
well,
lot of faction info.
but not a lot, not every faction is the same weight. I feel like.
Mm,
So it might be that your experience with the game differs, maybe not to a great extent, but certainly to some extent based on the faction you're playing. And this is a game like Root, I would say, where your experience with the game, not just in, the complexity, but also maybe just how much fun you find each faction or playing each role is going to differ pretty drastically. Like in Root, the factions are you play the game quite differently. And it's the same in this game. Now, this might be early to get into this. I feel like this game and Root both share something that I'm not a huge fan of, which is that I think the faction design is in both games is overly heavy-handed in that it kind of forces you to play a certain way. And the wiggle room that exists, and it does, is not sort of big enough for me to feel like I have the amount of agency that I like to have in a board game, just in general. Um, this game and Root, well, we're just on topic, is kind of the opposite of a game like, that's just throughout Huang or something, where it's like, all I got are these 5 tiles, but I feel like I can do 10 billion things. This game's the opposite because you have a lot of different actions, a lot of free actions, but a lot of the time you're kind of there thinking like, well, I got to do this, I got to do this, and I got to do this. So
right.
I don't get to choose whether those are the things I got to be doing because like I'm playing X faction and these are the things I got to
Right.
do. And
Like for example, if you're playing, do they call it the capitalist class? What do they call the one
yeah,
that you
it's
played,
the
Will?
capitalist class. Yep.
Like if you're playing the capitalist class, which business you build is going to be highly dependent on which workers randomly came out for the other players, just as an example, which specialist workers came out, right? Um,
Yeah, you do have some control over that, like as the other players, like you
right.
can train some of your workers to be into a different specialty, which does create some interesting table talk over maybe some other Euro games. I feel like there's a lot of Euro games that are pretty uninteractive, in which you literally are just kind of looking down at your sheet, building your engine as best as you can. This one does have some table talk. Like there is
Yeah.
some like amount of like, oh, like, maybe I can, help or like, do we like,
Yeah,
well,
build me a doctor. Can you lower your prices for me? I would buy this at this price, that
yeah,
sort of stuff.
Yes, I do think that the ability to change prices as a free action is probably, if I had to pick one thing about this game I think I like that because it means you can have a conversation with someone and be like, hey, like, if I lower prices on my turn, will you buy this from me? And you can be like, yeah, sure. And then you can make a deal that way. And as Ben said, this game does have that advantage over less interactive Euros than this.
Right.
However, I'd still say this game is in the broader category of the low interaction Euro kind of genre. And more specifically, this is in the sort of genre of Euro that I personally dislike the most. Just to be transparent, which I would sort of broadly refer to as sort of the resource exchange Euro genre,
Mm,
where like I'm getting this so that I can get this, and then when I get this, I can sell it to get this, and then that turns into victory points. And
yeah.
exactly what those materials are is going to look different depending on the game. And in this game, it's going to look different depending on the faction to some extent. But at the end of the day, you're turning wheat into beer to buy iron and then sell it for victory points or, whatever.
yeah.
And yeah,
Or maybe back
I,
to a greater quantity of wheat and you
yeah,
start the
maybe you're
cycle.
getting more wheat. You start the cycle over.
Yeah. I feel we should address the elephant in the room here, which is that this podcast is called Area Control Bros. And I think all of us typically don't really play much in the realm of Euro games, and aren't particularly interested in playing Euro games. Um, so like that's an important lens with I think with which to view some of how we're talking about this game.
Definitely. And I think
Um,
that's a good disclaimer.
yeah. I will say, what is like the big Euro game like in the like what is the big Euro game that like everybody is like should enjoy? Is it Food Chain Magnate? I've heard about Food Chain
No, no,
Magnate.
Food Chain Magnate is actually divisive because of how easy it is to get blown out. It's a game that
Mm,
it's actually so I do want to respond to your statement though, which is that I do want to say that even though I totally agree with the disclaimer that we're not big Euro gamers, I will make it more specific and say that we're not really like modern Euro gamers because we do play older Euros. You know, like Huang, El Grande, and
like good
Samurai.
games.
Yeah, good games.
That's just kidding.
No, but I mean, El Grande is totally a Euro. Like at the end of the day, it's a good Euro. You know, like our Hansa Teutonica is absolutely a Euro, but it just comes from a different era. And I'm not saying that like, back in the day type thing. It's just it was kind of a different design era of board games. Like Euros of that time are very different. They weren't about what modern Euros are about. And the people that enjoy those games, which are highly interactive, even if the themes are kind of dull, are not necessarily the same as the modern Euro, where the modern Euros are much more focused on an exciting theme, but ultimately boil down to what I just mentioned, which is you're changing your wheat into beer, into steel, and back into wheat or whatever. And
Mm.
ultimately, there can be dramatic design flourishes that make that more exciting, or the theme that integrates it well. But at the end of the day, you're kind of coming back around to that sort of thing. And I find that in the older Euros, it's less true. I just want to say that because I do think that it would be unfair to characterize us as not enjoying any Euros at all.
yeah. I guess I guess this is a question I can pose to anybody who might be listening. Like, if you're a big Euro gamer, what are the what are the big Euro games that you're playing? Like, because we play, we're like we play a lot of Area Control. We play a lot of I don't know, Forbidden Stars. We play Twilight Imperium. There's certain things that get to our table quite a bit, and that we like, and designs that we like. So I don't know, what is the thing in that realm that I should be aware of? Because maybe
Yeah.
because I kind of want to play what is considered I would love to play what is considered like a really good modern Euro game. And honestly, that might be this. People might
That's
be
yeah,
considering that's what this is, probably, you know?
I think that's why we tried this though, is because like this was so heavily praised. It was like, well, let's give this a shot because like this seems to be what people are holding up as like the big thing in the genre right now. I know some people also were talking about Voidfall last year, but this one seemed interesting. And it's dressed up really nicely, but I do kind of see that the skeleton of it is not too dissimilar to what we've seen before, I guess is where I was going with it.
Hmm. I I will reiterate Ben's point about the player interaction here, though. I think that there is a lot of space to explore in terms of bargaining in this game. I think that one way you can get around one of these more modern sort of resource exchangey Euros being very like staring down at the space in front of you is to have very different player factions that have to interact with each other in a particular way. And playing your faction right and trying to optimize um, that play style, given some of the variables that you're presented with throughout the game, might be very interesting to some people. I tend to lean more towards what Will is saying of like, I don't want to be pigeonholed too much into a particular style of play. But I'm sure there are people who would say, oh, I don't feel pigeonholed at all with hegemony. I mean, I would feel that way with Forbidden Stars being given the orcs or something. Like I've got to upgrade the same way every time. And, there might be someone who has a very different perspective. Whereas if I'm playing Forbidden Stars, I feel like I have so many options because the way that the board is developing and how I have to interact with that feels very different to me every time. Where someone else might feel that same way about a game like Hegemony, where it's like, oh man, like these different businesses came out than the last game, or whatever it might be. Um, so just yeah, again, not necessarily the types of games that we're always playing. Someone else could totally feel differently, but I do get that same feeling of like, I don't know if this is going to give me a lot of replayability hegemony. Now, I will give it credit for getting some player interaction out of us in some interesting ways. Um, I will give it credit for creating some really good table talk. The theme is interesting and it is very topical. It is very like, you know, it makes you want to role play a little bit. One place where I'll say I wish it did a little bit more is that as well, though. It does get you role playing, but I almost wish you could go more extreme in terms of policy in this game. That's something that Ben and I talked about afterwards, where it's like, you know, some of it feels a bit grounded. There's certainly some interesting things you can do, and you can know, okay, we're going to give, universal health care to everybody while also, bankrupting the government and not paying any taxes and,
Yeah.
this and that. And we had some
Yeah.
of that happen, and it was funny.
I,
Um, yeah,
I do want to address that because the table talk is very funny. But it might be the case that this game is more fun to hear little snippets of while you're in the game store and somebody else is playing it and just hear the table talk that happens where it's like, I'm raising taxes.
yeah.
And then everybody's like, come on.
Right.
Like
Like more fun to hear it than to be a part of it. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. There might be a little bit of that because I remember the first introduction I had to this game was I was at a game store and I was hearing other people play it, and it sounded really funny.
Yeah.
But it was kind of also funny because they were kind of doing it in like this deadpan because it's like it is a Euro game, so it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I think I'm gonna vote to raise taxes.
Right.
Um,
It's
like
it's not like it's not like, oh, I've got this sick play, I'm gonna raise taxes. It's like I've done, my mental arithmetic, and it feels like the marginally best play is to fuck you guys over.
Well,
yeah,
but
or
I
like
but
just
this
like
is
I'm raising the cost of healthcare.
Right.
You know,
but
like
this is something that we talked about after playing as well, which is that I don't love that there are victory points tied to there being certain policy positions.
Yeah.
Like the capitalists want like it to be like an end cap, like libertarian utopia. The workers all want it to be like a socialist, like workers' republic. The middle class just wants it to be in the middle. I kind of wish that there were no victory points tied to policy positions because I think the table talk would be better because it's like, oh, well, like, you know, okay, let's get free healthcare, but let's have, taxes here and let's do this. Like the whole table can be more interested in like creating something that it's going to work for everybody. And maybe they didn't do that because they were afraid that if they did not do that, that people, the typical Eurogamer, would not be what's the right word? Argumentative or confrontational enough that they
Mm,
would vote for something that other people don't want.
sure.
And by having the victory points as part of their sort of like optimization, it forces people to be in conflict. But I think it'd be more interesting if the optimal policy positions for each like uh faction were not so sort of straightforward. Like maybe there's a benefit to high taxes for capitalists if they pivot and do a different strategy than sort of the normal one they would be doing.
Right.
But instead, the optimal thing is to lower taxes and then do the thing that you always do as capitalists, which is sell a bunch of shit. And so I feel like the game would be more interesting to me if like there was that kind of extra space, as I said at the beginning. But I just don't know if that's there as much.
I will say another caveat: we did not play four player. It might be that this is like chaos in the old world kind of thing where like it really shines at four. I don't remember if we looked at like the people's reviews of
People do tend to say it's best at four.
right. So we played
In
it at
fact, not
three.
just 10, like it's an
Yeah.
overwhelming best at four.
Yes,
We
that's
did
true.
not play it with the government. There was nobody playing the government. The government was an NPC, and we really took advantage of them as much as possible. We collapsed the government like twice.
Hmm.
Um, Probably they like I have no idea what they're doing in the game if it's like a player. And it could be very interesting. There could be because it seems like they're not as tied to like the dials, like where if it like what kind of the government is. So like it seems like they got something else going on that might be pretty interesting. Um, and maybe they add like a whole new dimension, but a three player when we played it, it was okay, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
It was
Yeah.
long as well. I'll put that out there.
It's long. It's
It's
long.
not going to be shorter with a government player. I can tell you that with reasonable certainty. we played this game, and sure, it was our first go, and there was a bit of a teach in there. But I think even after we got through the teach, the game was 5 hours. And we kind of did a little chit chat back and forth, like how long could this really be? And it felt like maybe this is a 4 hour game. If other people feel otherwise, or you've played this and it's not a 4 hour game for you, maybe we were doing something wrong. I don't know. But it seemed like it was a 4 hour game, and that's with everybody getting 25 actions over the course of the game. To do 25 actions in 4 hours, that's relatively slow, you know?
Well, also, I guess it's also worth mentioning on that topic that the setup is quite hefty.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
this is a very fiddly, big setup. Again, it's always easier if everybody knows how to play the game, and you can kind of delegate, be like, hey, you take care of this part of setup, you take care of this part of setup, and you can make it easier that way. But it is a big setup no matter what, I think,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
It's an extreme amount of components. And everybody has their own as well. Like you've got your own little decks that need to be, yeah, it's this whole thing. So.
I mean, honestly, if you're buying it used, hopefully the person who you're buying it from like has done all the organization for you. It might like make the setup easier, you know?
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Yep, yep, yep. That is true. But
This is totally the game where if you love it, to invest in a nice insert that makes that process a bit easier. I'm looking at a picture of one right now, and I'm like,
oh,
ooh,
really?
that would have made this a
Oh, just like a
lot
nice thing to
easier.
pull out and then they're all like in trays already or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. I'll
Yeah.
if you guys are curious, there's a little picture there of this
Oh,
Yeah,
cool
yeah,
it's
that
like a
would
cool
little.
make
tray insert.
things
I
Oh
get hyped
a
yeah.
about
lot
Oh
inserts.
nicer.
man,
This
that's.
game could have benefited from a better insert, let's
I
say.
mean, oh dude, those like 3 by whatever, like 3 by 6 or 3 by 7 containers with a bunch of containers for small tokens.
Hmm.
Absolute game changer. The difference before and after playing Alien Trespass Odyssey, like before I went out and bought like these two little jewelry boxes just off
Right.
Amazon for cheap, and after was unbelievable. Like it just made it so much easier. You can just pull out the
Yeah.
box, put it on the table, and you can just pull and place the tokens inside in and out of the box as you
Yeah.
please without setting up. And it's like, oh my gosh. That should just be standard issue.
Like one of those you get one of those like fishing lure boxes.
Yeah,
Not a
it's
The
like
tackle
tackle
box, but like a
box,
little
yeah.
lure
Oh,
box, you
lure
know?
yeah,
box, yeah.
it's kind of like that. Yeah. And those sorts of things always make me smile because it makes it so much nicer. Yeah,
Yeah.
this game would have benefited from a nice insert. I mean, a lot of games do, but this one I think definitely, if this is your jam and a little bit unlike us, you're like a big Euro gamer and this really hits the right all the right notes for you, then
Mm.
don't be afraid to print or make a or buy a nice insert for this one because I'm
Uh,
sure it helps a lot.
They didn't have the insert, but may I say, in terms of production otherwise, other than the insert, this game's really pretty. It's got very cool meeples for middle class and working class. They're unique and fun, and all the little chits that you have for the different resources that you're picking up and paying things and selling throughout the game. Those are pretty cool. They've done a really good job there. The board has a lot on it, but they've went with a very like minimalist design on it, which I think helps it keep from feeling too cluttered. Um, I appreciate the design choices they've done component wise here and with the board and everything.
Oh, sure. I think it makes me optimistic for World Order because I think most of my issue with this game is just that I fundamentally am not a fan of the genre.
Mm,
And there are a lot of things that I like about like all the things that are not the hallmarks of the genre that exist in this game I like. Like I do agree. I think the board is well designed. I think the components are it's very easy to tell what each component is, which is an underrated design
yeah.
aspect. Yeah, food is obviously food, education is obviously education, and so on and so forth. Like it's pretty easy to discern what the
Or even that
components.
they've made the meeples for working class
Yeah, yeah,
and middle class different heights, which is pretty funny, by the way, but it's also like useful in terms of like at a glance seeing who is on a spot, you know?
yeah, and like I like the voting in this game, which is a very sort of not very modern Euro-y mechanic. The sort of the sort of secret bid auction voting
Mhm.
style. which I think we all like that. But it was part of what made me interested in trying this game is that it was featured prominently. But and so, but anyway, it makes me optimistic for their next game, which is an area control game, because I think I like a lot of the ideas here that are not the trappings of the genre. So I think in a different genre that I enjoy more, it might be that these guys that I feel about this game the way that people who are more into Euro games feel about this one, I guess is what I mean.
Yeah.
And is World Order out yet? It kind of looks like it is,
No,
no?
no, no, it's crowdfunding. It'll come out when it comes
Oh,
out.
okay. I seen that it has these ratings on it, but it's just people.
Yeah, I don't
Oh, some of
know.
them are talking about
Uh,
prototype. There's some bad ratings because the order might get delayed, it looks like.
Yeah, someone nationalized globalism,
oh,
Yeah.
or what is it?
I think there was something about the presence of Russia in world order that caused the controversy. Not to get
Oh.
political on the podcast, but I think a
Oh.
lot of angry people in Europe who are not very happy about Russia, certainly the Ukrainian board game geek users would number among them, did not want Russia to be portrayed in this board game whatsoever. And
Hmm.
I think World Order is portraying the geopolitical world of like the 2000s and 2010s, if I remember. So kind
Hmm.
of before China became as important as it is now, and while Russia was still like relatively powerful or relatively important. And so I think the designers, it wasn't like I doubt that the designers were like pro or anti-Russia when thinking about the geopolitical history of recent history. They were just like, well, Russia is an important power in
Right.
this period, and so they're in the game. But I think I remember reading about
Yeah.
a lot of people
I seen a
protesting that.
few comments like that on
Yeah,
the
so I
ratings
think
I was just looking at.
that
Yeah.
might have been a thing, but I, I mean,
That's too bad. Hopefully it's a good game and
yeah,
any of the drama is overshadowed by let's just, people play these games to escape from the real world. Do we need to have some appreciation for current events? Of course, but that to me seems like, a lot to then go on a game that hasn't been released and give it a one and have a bunch of people doing that because they've made a decision that you don't like. Whatever.
here's a good one. We have this gentleman on BGG says Russia shouldn't be part of the game. It's neither a great power nor any decency suggests that while the brutalities are ongoing, it's okay to include them in even a semi-positive light in games. Lastly, no one in my group would even play as the zombie Nazi state. Substitute Russia with actual zombie Nazis, or the UK, or Brazil. Doesn't matter. Russia ruins this game for me.
Huh. Oh, so it's like UK not in, but Russia is.
Yeah, it
I
sounds like
Is
they
that
do
part of
four
the
superpowers, and some people are saying it should have been the UK instead of Russia. I see another comment that says UK should have been instead of Russia.
yeah,
I
yeah.
guess that's, sure.
sure.
Yeah, what are the four superpowers? Is it Russia, China, the US, and the EU? I would guess. I mean, that makes sense, right? I mean, wait, who is
Let's
the
see.
UK? Is the UK not included in the EU? What year was Brexit? Um, yeah, we're getting way off topic. We're getting way off topic here.
Hegemony.
More importantly, hegemony. Anyway, I don't know if I have a whole lot left to say about hegemony, but
I
if
mean,
you
I
guys
feel
want
like
to,
that's why we branched off this. I don't really have much more to say either. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know if I really have like a solid rating in my brain for hegemony. One positive thing I'll say about it is I did think about it, like while I was in the shower, like a couple days later, like it didn't completely exit my brain. There was some part of it where I was like, wow, well, maybe I could have done this better, like, oh, maybe there's like a different strategy that I wasn't aware of that would be better for what I was doing.
yeah,
Hmm.
we don't even need to rate hegemony. I just think it was nice to sort of like talk about it as sort of like a departure from what we would normally play and sort of think about it kind of solidifies like it's like, well, what do I like about board games and what do I not like about board games? And, what do other people like about board games? And it's sort of nice to go outside your comfort zone sometimes to investigate that.
Right. Yeah, I
Um,
don't feel qualified necessarily to rate
Yeah, because I think this is a game that,
the
as
game.
I've said, like I think if this genre is what you like to do, maybe this game is the GOAT. And I'm not going to tell you that it isn't, like
Yeah.
just because I'm personally, subjectively not that into it doesn't mean that it can't be an amazing game for the people who, who are into this kind of thing. That's all. Whereas I feel a little more confident when we're talking about stuff in our wheelhouse, like in our area control wheelhouse. It's like, okay, we can definitely we can really compare such and such games mechanics to the many other games we played in the genre and sort of hunker down and sort of look at like what makes this game different. Is it better or worse at doing such and such things than these other games? Yeah, we're probably not qualified to do the same with this one.
yeah. Yeah, there might be somebody who really likes turning wheat into beer, into iron, into more wheat. Like I'm not gonna knock you if that's like your jam, you
Yeah.
know?
I will, but I'll do it privately.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, should we jump right into the next one then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as longtime listeners or viewers of the podcasts will already know, we are big Reiner fans here. We stan Reiner in this house, and this is a retheme of an old game of him, Quo Vadis. And the theme, of course, was the ancient Roman Senate. And they rethemed it to the classic, and by classic, I mean not classic at all, but very popular anthropomorphic animal theme.
Yes.
However,
Yeah, these are
it
the most lightly anthropomorphized
yeah, I was
animals.
gonna say this game, as far as this practice and modern board game goes, I think this one gets away with it for me because the animals are literally just the animals. They're
Yeah, like they
not.
might have costumes, you know?
Yeah, it's like
They're animals in clothes on 2 feet.
yeah, they're like it's like you just went to the zoo and you put a military uniform on a rhino, or you gave the armadillo a little bandana, but it's still like the animal. It's not
Mm.
like
Yeah.
an
It's it's
armadillo
it's in the realm
person.
of like Narnia, where it's like it is the animal, but it might be able to talk or something. No one's doing it, you know?
Yeah.
Doing what?
Doing the animal, or
Oh,
like you're not like they're not like advertising to the people who want to, you know?
oh, okay. I just wanted some clarity there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
The most anthropomorphized might be like the like crocodiles or the Huquan, you know.
the tigers. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Like
yeah,
yeah, like they're more bipedal than they are in real life, but like yeah, the armadillo is just an armadillo, and then the things that are already on 2 legs, like the birds, are just a bird with a hat.
yeah.
So
Anyway, just to say, I'm happy to be hypocritical and excuse this thing that I don't like as long as it's on a Reiner game.
And
Um,
I think the theme is like done well and it's pretty cute in this and it works for me, especially with the peacocks wondering about the zoo. That really gets me going. I think it's so funny because you go to the zoo and there's always peacocks wondering about, you know? And so to have that as like a mechanic is
it is
fucking
pretty funny.
hilarious.
It
And
is
it
really
and it
funny. Yeah.
sells me on the animal theme for that alone. Like whoever thought like we need like it's the fucking peacocks at the zoo. And then like, to me that's the catalyst for then saying this has to be zoo themed, you know?
Reiner was like brushing his teeth and Jen was just like, peacocks!
Ooh! I think so. I think so.
But yeah, anyway, this game, not in the top 100. However, the original game is actually lower ranked than the modern retheme. Quo Vadis is set 3017 overall. Zoo Vadis is 899. This game is not making it in there. And that's kind of makes sense because there is that bias on BGG towards heavier games. And
Hmm.
this is a very like easy, light, family level game. It's definitely possible to teach your family this one. Um, and they made it slightly heavier than the original by adding some asymmetric powers to each animal, which did not exist in the original version of the game. And I think there's been some rebalances and stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if this is like the definitive version of the game that they've improved on it with the years of experience in between and so on. But I do feel like this game is not as high as it should be. It's in the strategy bracket. I would consider this more to be, not that there isn't strategy, but I would consider this almost to be like a relatively strategic party game, maybe? I don't know. It feels like it's in that kind of weird niche where it's like too light to be the main course, but so heavier than playing like code names or something,
Hmm.
you know?
I
So
would I would think it'd be hard to get this out at most parties. If you had
yeah,
some board
that's true.
gamers, then
Yeah,
sure. But I
yeah,
I I'm thinking of the people that I know that are like party gamers.
yeah,
If I brought Zuvadis to them, they might be like, "What are
I
we doing here?"
I
yeah.
think this would be good for a large Mormon family. You know, it's in that like if you've got like a bunch of people that you're trying to play a board game with, but like not like a party level, and you're all into it, you know?
But
Mhm.
father, I don't want to be the armadillos again. Silence, child. You will play the armadillos and you'll like it.
And you'll let me burrow under the ground.
Yeah. It's but anyway, pulling it back a little bit. This is
Everybody has to use their animal powers on dad
yeah, or
if they want to eat tonight.
yeah, if you want to eat tonight, or else everybody's going to bed early. But anyway, this is interestingly, this is a pure negotiation game, basically. I'd say actually, I'll take that back. It's a negotiation slash racing game. I'd say there's definitely a race element to this, and
There's a race element.
there's a race element. I'd say it's racing and negotiation, and maybe racing is kind of like a sub theme of Reiner games because, of course, El Dorado is another Reiner game that's racing that a lot of people like. Obviously, that's a deck builder and it's heavier, but maybe there's a little racing thing that Reiner likes as well. And this game really pulls it off well. And I think the push pull of the Star Pavilion or like the Star Zone, whatever it's called, that area, you needing to get in there to even be scoring any victory points is really cool. Like it opens up some interesting possible plays.
Yeah, agree. I've been playing another racing game recently, Trackmania. That's been quite fun. It's not the same type of racing game as Zoo Wattis, though. I'll say that much. I get what you mean. There is a race, but it's like a strategy race. You know what I mean? It's not like I feel like when you're playing oh, what's the other one you just mentioned? The
El
Reiner
Dorado.
game. Yeah, when you're playing El Dorado, it really is like there's a real impetus to get there fast. I feel in Zuvadis, there's an impetus to like get close enough, like get in striking distance so that when you need to like get in, you can do. Um, you need to position yourself where you're not gonna like get left in the dust, sort of thing. But I don't think it's necessarily like, you must be first one across the finish line or there's like a huge advantage. I don't think there's a huge advantage being first one across. You just really don't want to not cross the finish line, right?
Yeah, and like the other element of it is you want to be making a ton of good deals.
Yeah.
Like that's part of it is like you want to be making a lot of beneficial deals, the deals that benefit you more than whoever you're helping out. Um, and I think that that's the main tension between of the game is like I think if you stay behind and clog up a bunch of the like beginning spaces, you have a lot more power to extract good deals from other people that are very beneficial to you, but you risk getting left behind
Mm.
in the dust and not getting anybody forward. The first game that we played, I won because I was making a lot of good deals and got somebody to the finish line. And then the second game I lost, even though I was making a bunch of good deals, and I think I had more points than anybody, maybe by
Mhm.
like one.
You had one more point. Yeah.
I had one more point, but was not able to get to the finish line. And this bastard Blake just filled it with peacocks.
That's right.
So
Who can control those peacocks? They're just wandering where they please.
That's right. I love the peacocks. I gotta say it again. They're so funny to me. It really cracks me up.
But I think just to sort of like visualize like where this exists in the board game spectrum, what would you say is the closest game to this that we've played? Is it like Moonrakers?
Nah,
hmm.
no, not
No,
Moonrakers.
yeah, but
Um,
it's in a weird spot for sure.
Yeah,
It's
it's
it's very
interesting.
unique. It's very unique.
I
I
think
think it sort of feels like it almost feels like a pick up and deliver game in some ways. You
you're
know?
picking up the peacocks and delivering them to the finish line.
No, but like you're sort of routing around trying to get to these, higher value tokens on these different routes and there's a destination to be gotten to, like you
I
can
can see
clog up
that.
routes along the way. There's a little bit of a feel there for me. It's definitely not a pick up and deliver game. I'm not saying that, but
Mhm.
there's a feel there that is reminiscent. But no, it is quite unique.
Yeah, I
There are a
can't
lot.
really think of a comparison.
There
So
are a lot
yeah.
of interesting mechanics in this game. So when you pick up victory points, you're picking up physical, like this is two victory points, or two, three, four, or five victory points from the board. And the one victory points are points you gain mostly through being part of a deal. And what's interesting though is that with the peacocks in the game, you can spend any one of the tokens that is worth two or more victory points to bribe the peacocks. And there's this interesting sort of like mini game of like, can I trade something to the peacocks to kind of trade up and
Right.
be able to get myself more victory points and push one of my animals further to the closer to the finish line. And I think that is a really interesting way to deal with the problem that most negotiations would have with having fewer players than is best for a negotiation game. Which
I
is
think I think it's probably the best solution I've seen to something like that. Because like a lot of negotiation games probably break down if you don't have enough players.
Hmm.
Like you want the higher player counts so that there's more people to actually like talk to. It is good to have an NPC that just you can
Right.
bribe.
And that's not to say that this game isn't still better at a higher player count, but I think that their solution for a lower player count deserves mention here because I think it, as Ben said, I think it's among the best, perhaps the best solution to what otherwise would plague a low player count game in this genre. And I think another crucial element of this game is that rather than the deal making being focused on like what's good for you, it's almost more focused on like how not to make it too good for the person with the other guy.
Right.
Because they're no, just for any deal at all. If you have made any deal, you are getting a like one victory point for it, basically. And okay, so I guess technically there are some deals that would not do that. So like if you made an agreement to use a animal power that does not have a guaranteed one victory point, then it's but then that would also
Right.
not happen because like why would they do it? So you're giving them yeah, there's basically no deal in
Yeah.
the game where you
Like
would
if you're
not
voting for somebody else, then you're
if you're voting, you'll
getting some
get one
points.
automatically like
But
as
you could set up a deal where you're like, hey, everybody here, I will give you, some future benefit if you vote for me. And then everybody votes for you, but you only count up to the number of votes that you needed. So then you have to decide, you get a victory point, you get a victory point, you don't. There's some situations where you couldn't, but for the most part, the game is giving you VP for giving other people votes. And
Yeah.
so there's this automatic incentive where it's like when you're trying to get someone else to vote for you, you're not paying the entire benefit that they receive, right? So it's not a zero sum game. There's money to be had just from voting for other people. There's money to be had as sort of a toll, like as a sort of highwayman in this game, where you set up in places that are uncomfortable for other people, and you go, okay, well, how are we going to make this work? That's interesting. It's like sort of yeah, it's definitely a negotiation game, but there's parts of it that it almost feels like an abstract game as well. You know, it sort of is bridging between.
Well, I like what you brought up. Maybe this is the first true highwayman like.
Right. But it's
Yeah.
like a highwayman that also is like, you know, like the government is paying them for being a highwayman or something. I don't know.
It's a tax collector. You're a toll collector.
Yeah, you're a
Is
toll collector.
What is the money in this game anyway? Is it like animal snacks? Are the animals like actually amassing money in the zoo?
All
I
I know is that the peacocks won't eat the ones.
That's true.
yeah, they're too good for that.
Yeah.
It makes me think it is a snack, and like the ones are just like the absolute worst bottom tier, like super dry animal crackers, and everything two and up is like yummy for the peacocks, you know. That's what I'm going with. But regardless, I do agree that there is an almost abstract nature to this game, and but it's the puzzle is constantly evolving because
Yeah.
even just one person moving a peacock to block you or like doing something can force you to reevaluate your whole plan. And I think that happens a lot in Reiner designs in particular, where he designs these games where they're thinky and strategic, but at the same time, you must be able to react to the wrenches that your opponents will be throwing into your plans. And if they're playing the game well, then they will be throwing many wrenches.
Hmm.
And that's part of the fun, for sure.
I like the asymmetric powers in this, and I like that they did what is similar in like TI with like commodities. Like the actual asymmetrical power you have is useless to you. You can't use it for yourself. You just have to sell it for
Hmm.
for benefit. I do like that as a point of like interaction. It's like, well, what can you do for me? It's like, oh, the armadillos can give you like a shortcut if you really need to like get advancing through the board, or like the crocodiles had a kind of similar one, which is like they're good at helping you move through the like one exhibits so that like you're not wasting your time, your action. Like it's like you can do like a double move. Um, yeah, I like that it's just like a little extra thing that you can try to sell, you know?
Yeah. I would assume that that's a pretty nice improvement from the original game.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I also like that, like, everyone's out here hawking their wares, like, oh, I'll sell you this because, I
Hmm.
have to sell you it. That's all I could do is sell
Right.
this.
Right.
And
And I think it
yeah,
lends I really don't think the winning strategy in this game is trying to block people. I think that you do want to make deals, right? And the fact that you have these powers that you must sell, there's like the TI commodities, as been said, I think helps guide people towards the idea of like, oh, there's some fun to be had here making a deal, and oh, and I gained something from it. Maybe I'll try that again.
Mhm.
Get you started on the right path, so to speak.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to imagine a player group that plays this like very group hug-ish. We're like, oh, of course I'll let you through. Yeah, don't worry about paying me. And then like it gets to the point where like, everybody's on the cusp of entering the final area, and then just all hell breaks loose. Like I think that the game is designed in a way where like the act of making deals early feels like it's low consequence, but the deals later in the game as the stakes grow higher and higher, and you kind of understand what's at stake. I love the idea that there could be this total social meltdown over like who the last person to get into the scoring zone will be,
Hmm.
like that kind of thing.
Yeah. I saw Blake's play coming like a couple turns before it happened. Like when he put the second peacock into the final enclosure, and I was like, I don't know if I have the time to be able to stop this,
Yeah,
you
and
know?
then I suggested a play that would slow you down as if I weren't trying to screw you out of it, and you're like, "No, fuck you," which I love. I love. It's so
Yeah.
funny. Uh,
Anyway,
yeah.
this is a pretty light game. I don't really have a whole lot else to say about it. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I'm happy to talk about it, but you know, is there anything else we haven't talked about here? I think we've covered most
Zumanis.
stuff.
let me think. No, I mean, yeah. I like that some of the two tokens give you little benefits, you know.
Yeah.
There's enough of a difference there between just like these aren't just all points, you know. We talked a little bit about that with okay, you know, you can't bribe a peacock with a one VP token, you know. So then when you're making a trade, there's a big difference between I can offer you a single two VP token, or I can offer you, you know, two one VP tokens. There's a difference between that, which is kind of fun for negotiation purposes. You have a little bit of granularity there.
Yeah, but I think
Um,
there's only like a total of like four actions that you can take on your turn, right? It's like move a peacock, if you're in that kind of player count, like try to move and maybe trigger a vote, move the zookeeper. Is there another one I'm forgetting about? Or that might actually be
Place an animal,
place an animal. Yeah.
which is yeah. I mean, it's you
yeah,
You're
got to
gonna
do
be
that.
doing that.
Yeah, you're going to be doing that.
yeah,
You have to
you're
do that.
mostly doing the same crap. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, yeah, I don't have too much else other than that. Yeah, to say that I like the that some of the two tokens have little bonuses on them that, you know, shake up, you know, the game a little bit. You might want one of them over like a
I
three or a
guess
four sometimes.
I guess just as an aside, I do think it's an interesting design kind of flourish that the way to prevent people from gaining more victory points um, is to allow them to move freely via the zookeeper. Like you
Right.
put someone in a
Mm,
position where like, oh yeah, just come on through, but you won't get any victory points for it.
right.
I think that's kind of it. That's another thing in this game that I haven't seen before. I think it's interesting, but then again, the whole layout of this game is quite unique, and so maybe that's why I haven't seen something exactly like that before, because it only makes sense with kind of the board being the way it is for this one.
Right.
But
Yeah,
I
very
cool.
cool.
seen one that was sort of like it, this game, Quo Vadis.
Okay, okay.
Anyways,
Anyway,
I do
score.
feel qualified to give a score to Zubatas. I assume you
Oh
guys
Yeah.
would.
sure, oh sure, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Scoring, scoring. We can score this one. Would
Would
either of
one of you
you
guys like to
gentlemen?
start? Shall I
Uh,
jump in?
yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
I shall give Zoo Vadis an 8.5. I think it's really, really solid. I love the look of it. I love the feel of it. I'm excited to play some more of it. I don't think that it'll get old. I think that for the amount of time that it takes, which is very, very little, it does something very, very unique. And you know, Reiner swings and Reiner hits again. He doesn't miss this guy. You know, he's been doing it for a long, long time. There's a reason that I consider him my pal, you know, my equal, you know, this Reiner guy. So I got some respect for Zuvadis, and so I'm giving it an 8.5.
Yeah. I'm right in that same pack. I'm giving it an 8. Score would probably go up if I get to play it more with like higher player counts and it's equally as good, or if I get to play it with like uh, you know, my grandma or something. Like if it passes the grandma test, which it probably will. I think you can definitely play this with like your family, with like, you know, like a decently young child, although you could probably manipulate them to give you very good deals. Like, I don't know. This definitely passes like as a family weight game, and I mean, like I said it kind of in jest, but I do think that if you're a Mormon family that has 7 children, you'd probably, well, 5 children, and then the two parents,
Oh yeah,
you'd
yes.
probably enjoy this. Yeah, like I think it
Or
would probably be a
or
good one.
four children and three parents, or three children and four parents. Any
Yeah,
combination that
whatever
gets you to,
combination gets you to
yeah,
7.
right.
Yeah.
I wrote my score beforehand. I'm coming in here with the 8.5. And I think that I got my back blown out every time we played this game. And like I got just murdered and I had a lot of fun like in each play. And to me that's like a pretty good indication that I like the game quite a bit. I think a game that you enjoy despite losing quite badly is rare actually.
Hmm.
Like I think there are a lot of games where like you could be losing and just feel like, well, all I can do is king make, or maybe if you're playing like arcs, like maybe you can't even king make, you're just dead and you can leave the
Right. All I
house
can
at
do
that
is
point.
be a punching bag.
All you can
Or
do
a pin, not even a punching bag, a piñata.
a pinata, a loot pinata. But in this game, I do like that even when you're losing, you can still be a highwayman.
Yeah.
You can still be controlling certain aspects of the board. Maybe you're not losing. Maybe in some sense you are king making a little bit, but you got to play to your outs and try to get some VP. Maybe you're able to block someone who has more points than you, and you sneak into the final podium instead at a higher player count, or you get the peacocks in or whatever. Anyway, all this to say that despite this game quite being light, it's very interesting. And like even after we played, I was thinking about, things I could do differently and how I should have been more savvy with deals and negotiation and stuff. I think this game feels like if you only have one negotiation game in your collection, maybe this is it because like this game can be played at a lower player count than, Sidereal Confluence or Chinatown or whatever. And you've got the peacocks to compensate while it also being, very family friendly, easy to teach this one. Feels like it hits
Yeah.
all the right notes for me. Um, yeah, 8.5 for me.
Yeah, kids like going to the zoo, you know?
That's so
I,
true.
I don't know how much I haven't played this with a child. I don't know how much they'd actually like the game, but you know,
I think the animal meeples probably go a long way with the kid, right? They probably think like the crocodiles look cool or, whatever. I don't know
yeah,
what kids do
If
these
they don't
days.
like it, it says more about them than it does the game.
Yeah,
You
what
know
do
what I
uh,
kids
mean?
even do these days? They like go to Minecraft, the Minecraft movie and start a riot. I mean, maybe
Right. Yeah. May I just say on your point there, Will, of king making and its relation to this game. One thing that, I'm not in general, I would prefer a victory condition game over a victory point game, right? We've got a victory point game here. Um, the nice thing about a victory point game is that it solves the question of what do I do if I can't win, right? Well, it's I maximize my victory points. And that still feels good in this game. The part of my problem with that answer is that there's a lot of victory point games where that doesn't end up feeling good,
yeah.
even though it's like, the answer. It feels good in this game to like, I'm going to do my best,
That
especially, and I think part of that is that it's a quick game, but part of it is the design.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was talking about. Is like despite losing, I still had fun until the end of each,
Yeah,
of these plays because it was just there was still fun stuff to be doing,
right.
even knowing that I was a goner.
yeah. I think the one thing I've noticed in a lot of Reiner games that still holds true is the keep the points hidden mentality. I feel like in most of the games that I've seen designed by
Yep,
him, the
a lot of
points are not
screens.
very public. It's all secret so that nobody's just counting the points and like optimizing the fun out of the game where you're like, how do I get one more point than that person?
Yeah, and there are games where the screen is kind of a formality, like 1v1 in Samurai, like a two-player game of Samurai, like or even a three-player game of Samurai. I think everybody knows like how many of the cast minis everybody has. But despite that, you're not obsessing over it to the same extent than
Yeah.
if they were 100% public. And I think that that is a conscious decision to make the game just let it flow, you know?
Let it flow. It's like that song "Let It Snow."
Let arcs flow, let arcs flow, let arcs flow.
Well, maybe not arcs, but otherwise, yeah. Otherwise, you understood what I meant.
All right.
Uh, that's
Well,
the podcast, I think, right?
that's the podcast. I will say for those of you who made this far, on the off chance that somebody made it this far and is wondering about the Burning Banners question, I do have a copy of Burning Banners now. We'll
Woohoo!
be playing it. It seems there's a basic game and an advanced game, so it's possible we play like the basic game, then the advanced game, and then to get a feel for it. Anyway, all this to say, I don't know when we'll get a review out because it might be a game that takes some time to feel out.
It's
Um,
also yet another out of print area control game.
it's
And we got that suggestion from one of you guys. So it must be somebody who's listened to a good amount of our
Mhm.
podcasts
yeah, it's
because they
now
know
like
us that we play
yeah,
a lot of out of print area control. So
it's barely out of print. In the sense that I think pretty much all the retail, at least in the US, is like I don't know if you can buy it at retail anymore. I mean, maybe like some stores still have a copy, but not online. So the secondary market is where you have to go. And as always, it's going to get scalped. So I apologize in advance if that's going to happen. But we're going to do our best to do a good review of it and tell you whether it's worth diving into the secondary market in the first place. Hopefully next time or the time after. We'll see.
we'll see.
So thanks for listening and or watching.
Yeah. Party on, viewers.
That's our sign off now. That's what we're going to say at the end of every episode.
Yeah, party on.
Party on.